Christ Center presents Let's Talk About Love, a program focusing on romantic and family relationships. Our church is located at 1615 West Shelton Avenue in the heart of West Oak Lane in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania 19126. Our phone number, 215-LIVRITE, Live Right. Our teacher is pastor and counselor and 8-time author, Dr. David R.L. Stevens. This is a listener-supported program. All donations should be made out to Christ Center Church of God and Mark Radio. And now, here is our teacher, Dr. Stevens.
Hi there, I'm Dr. David Stevens, back again this week with Let's Talk About Love. And if you missed this broadcast or any of our broadcasts, you can go to YouTube, type in C Center Radio, put the number of the broadcast, and I think that you will be able to get us. Okay, let's delve into our topic. Let's talk about love. I'm sharing some from a previous book, Marriage Catching a Second Wind. The subject that I'm going to do today or approach today is a continuation of last week. Show me the money. That's right. Show me the money. All right, here we go. Katie, a circuit lecturer, made more money than her husband, who was an actor. Paul would get a gig several times a year. He was usually paid per performance fairly well at union scale. Usually the earnings amounted to far short of a regular annual 9 to 5. When their baby came, it really put a strain on an already strained budget. They made up their minds early in their marriage that they would do whatever it took to make their marriage work. They kept to that early commitment as the years rolled on. Their income varied over the years, but they made the adjustments that were needed. In the very good years, they drove 2 cars. When the budget got tight, they drove 1 car. Their commitment held fast, and their marriage blossomed. New school philosophy might suggest that the careers of Katie and Paul will never move beyond a certain low, mid-range level. According to some from the school of thought, if you can't achieve a bright financial future, perhaps it's time to move on. So it is that many new school folks divorce over not being able to move financially upward. That's not smart at all. Now, old school folks might have had some class issues in the past. People in the upper crust tended to want to marry people in that same class. So I won't say that class or financial status was not even thought of, but it was unlikely to have been the final determining factor. There are plenty of stories out there about people who decided to forget their class distinctions in order to marry for love. I think it's more where you decide to set your mind. Money can't be the center of attraction. I like the fact that my wife was a teacher when I met her. The income potential certainly was attractive, but it had little to do, if anything, with me wanting to marry her. I fell in love with her because of her. We, just like Katie and Paul, made the decision to do whatever it took to make it. This commitment has taken us through multiple joyous decades. And yes, I would do it all over again if I had to make the choice. I'm not so steeped in the old school philosophies that I cannot examine anything new. In this life, we are ever learning. I would never say that new methods and new ways of examining life are not needed. Certainly they are. Sometimes some things come along that help us improve the quality of our lives, and that is good. Sometimes we find that we are practicing things that we are not even sure why we do them or where we even got them from. There is a story about a little girl watching her mother prepare a ham roast. Her mother cut the roast in half and placed it into 2 pans before placing them in the oven. "Why'd you cut that in half?" the little girl said. Her mother replied that she did it because she had watched her mother do it. When they asked Grandma about it, her answer was the same, that she had watched her mother do it. Well, when they called up Great-Grandma to solve the mystery, she just laughed and laughed. I did it because at the time I didn't have a pan large enough to hold the roast. I think what I am recommending is attention to the Bible passage that says not to forget the old landmarks. There are some things that will stand very little improvement. Repeating the old farmer that said some things just should not be fooled with. Landmarks represent boundaries. If a boundary needs to be adjusted based on some sound data that perhaps was not previously available or not understood earlier, something like this might be adjusted. An example of this might be seen in how you look at Proverbs 31. Some traditional cultures believe that a woman's place was in the home exclusively. A whole tradition sprung up around this supposed biblical teaching. I invite you to look again at Proverbs 31 with fresh eyes. We see that this woman not only worked in the home, but she had a business going on outside of her home. Throughout the Bible, we see working women such as Lydia, who sold dyed cloth, Ruth, who worked in the fields harvesting wheat. Be careful. If we have a bias, we can make the Bible say just about anything that it does not really say. Betty served the last passenger, walked to her jumper seat, and settled in for the landing. In just a few minutes, she would be on her way to her airport hotel room. Her job paid well. Her hours were pretty reasonable. Everything should have been fine. But she could not get over leaving the twins. David was a wonderful father, but the boys always cried for her when she had to leave them for these weekend assignments. Her husband had suggested that she give up this difficult weekend schedule and go back to a regular work week. The arrangement was easier on the family because she was away most of the day, but was usually home in the evenings before the little guys were tucked in for the night. Betty made far more money working Friday to Monday morning with this new airline that featured weekend service. Even though they were financially challenged, the two of them decided to enroll the twins in an accelerated preschool program. She worried about how they would pay tuition if she went back to her old job. David owned a construction company, causing his income to be up and down. He had to make sure that he paid his men first. If their boys were going to stay in this program, they definitely had to depend on what she was now making per week. On top of all of that, she was having a hard time leaving home with her little guys clinging to her and crying when they saw the rolling travel bags coming out of the hall closet. They knew that this meant that Mommy would be missing for what seemed to them a long, long time. Was it really worth it? She lamented. Sometimes we need to stop and actually evaluate the journey. The accelerated program for the twins was a great opportunity, but was it really worth it? It seemed like a great idea, but could they really afford the heavy cost? Sometimes making more is not the real answer to the situation. A good education is valuable, but the things that solidify the family trump even education. Another biblical principle commands parents to train up a child in the way that that child should go, with the emphasis on that training being the direct responsibility of the parents. The new school way is to cart your children off to the experts so that they can teach them. Again, looking at Bible perspective, it is our responsibility to train them up according to their individual need. The latter part of that verse says, in the way that they should go. Each of our children differs in their needs, understanding, emotions, and intellect. Sure, Betty and David need more money to afford this school opportunity, but who is to say that this is going to make the twins better people because of this outside training? We all know of people who have had the best of educational opportunities in the world and still turn out rotten. Perhaps some of them would have been a little different if they had had more time spent with loving, nurturing parents. Maybe if these parents spent time searching out and imparting Bible truths to their children, their understanding of life and how to live it would have made a big difference in their lives. Karen had a problem sharing in the family expenses. She felt that the money she made was her own. She worked as a retail buyer for a clothing chain and made decent wages. Her gift for shopping carried over into her private life. Karen refused to even talk about helping her husband Mark. The house, car, utilities, food, clothing, all were on her husband. She would not even put gas in her own vehicle. Because she believed it was on him to do so, what she did with her own money was all up to her, she felt. Her husband would not challenge her because he said that he wanted to keep peace and not rock the boat. What peace? Let's ask the question. What peace? Wake up. The boat is sinking, Mark. Karen is sabotaging the family, and Mark is allowing it. Peace? Peace? Where is the peace? There's absolutely no peace. Keeping silent about the hole in the dike is not going to bring a solution. In fact, the hole will widen. Trust me. Mark is the head of the family. It is his responsibility to bring about control to the situation. These folks need to see a marriage counselor right away. This may surprise you. I don't feel that every penny a married working woman makes must go back into the family budget. She should certainly contribute in a meaningful way, but it is not a wrong thing for her to save and spend a portion of her money. Let's look again at Proverbs 31. This woman, she gets to decide just how she wants to distribute her personal funds. This wonderful lady in verse 16 buys some real estate with the money that she has earned. In verse 22, she has the liberty to decorate the walls of her dwelling place with tapestry, which was very costly. In verses 21 and 27, she shows great concern for the welfare of her family, seeing to it that they are well clothed. She has the financial freedom also in verse 22 to buy and clothe herself in expensive silks and purple. She even takes the time to look after the needs of her politically active husband in verse 11. Also in verse 12 and 23, she dresses him for success in front of the other town leaders. All of this seems to be left to her choice. Each family is unique. They must work out their financial affairs in accordance with the spirit and structure of the family. What may work very well for one family may not work for another family. I believe that through prayer, God will lead those who call on him. But I feel that the passage of Scripture in Proverbs 31:10 through 31 gives a pretty good general outline for money management success. And at that, I'm going to quit for the day. This is Radio's Fastest 15. If you'd like to catch more of this program, go to YouTube and type in C Center Radio. Okay, Dr. Stevens saying goodbye.
We hope you've enjoyed this edition of Let's Talk About Love. This program has been presented by Christ Center Church of God, 1615-19 West Shelton Avenue in the heart of the West Oak Lane section of Philadelphia. Our speaker has been Dr. David Stevens, pastor, counselor, and award-winning author. This radio program is listener-sponsored, and we do solicit your prayers and donations. See you next time on Let's Talk About Love.